is it going to be just strictly a record that is going to either meet your expectations or fail to meet your expectations? Or is it going to be, let's start with that, but I want to see how well they play against A, B, and C and see if I see progress in these different areas? Or is it just going to be flat out, I want 10-2?
That's a great question, because it can go one or two ways. I look at last year, and I actually took that approach last season because I thought it was a rebuilding year. I genuinely was like, okay, I don't see us making the playoffs. Like, I don't see us going on a really long run here. I want to just see how it looks. But then I understood that they took that a win's a win and ran with it, to where you have these horrifically close games for no apparent reason. You lose momentum. Everybody leans back, oh, it's a COVID year. Okay, it was a COVID year for everyone. We can't keep using that as an excuse for what we saw in that football field in certain games. Okay, the unpreparedness, them not executing, not tackling, not catching the football, all right? Not knowing the game plan and not executing, not being able to make adjustments, all those type of things. So, yes, a record will tell me something, all right? But I want to see us dominate teams. If you were to say one thing has to happen this year, Mark, win the ACC Coastal. It's just like that. Win the Coastal. Here's why I say that, Mark. In the maturation of a lot of teams, there's these hurdles, loops, ladders, however you want to say. All right. Let's take the Clemson Tigers, since every Miami Hurricanes fan swears that Coach Manny Diaz is Dabo Swinney. Okay, right? I've studied that program for a while because it was a team that, A, was rivals with the team I hate the most on this planet, so I like that. And I like the way that they played. Their colors are kind of cool. They're orange and white. They also had these elite defensive lines for a long time. And I actually watched them in person play Joey Bosa in the Ohio State in that 2014 Orange Bowl. What a great game. And what great talent to all be on the field at the same time. Looking back 7 years ago? Jeez. Oh, I'm getting up there. Anyway.
You're talking to the wrong guy to be saying that.
Clemson had these hurdles. What, if you could, in your mind, what would be a couple of the hurdles you would say? The first hurdle for them to start really becoming an elite program, in your opinion? What would you say was number one?
Wow, that's a great question. I think most elite here's the one position that I think there are less teams in the country, the least amount of teams that are exceptional at this position. Mm-hmm. And this may not be their next step, but this will be a step that will be key, will be having an offensive line that is stout.
Okay. All right. I think that's huge because Miami did have a big-time QB in Bradley Kaya, fourth QB in the country. He breaks all these records and did nothing but go down, and then did six-round draft pick. But what I mean by, I'll make my point and then I'll ask you about it. So here's what I'm saying. I would say a couple of those hurdles. Number one, they had to take care of home, South Carolina. They could not get over South Carolina. What happened? The old ball coach starts to wane out of college football and get over that hump.
I'm sorry, Wholesome. When you were asking me about Clemson, when they emerged, okay. I thought you were asking about
Miami's
what I'm looking at for Miami to improve. Okay, I got you. Yeah, South Carolina beat them 5 consecutive years. Yeah, absolutely.
They got over that hump.
Yep.
The next hump, even when they got over that SEC hump, the other one was the one team that stood in front of them, and that was those Tallahassee people. They would get to the end of the year, beat Clemson, beat South Carolina. They would, of course, have Clemson, but that comes later on, right? So you have the first hurdle was taking care of home and winning the state of South Carolina. Number one, they beat them on the football field. But two, they started running recruiting in South Carolina and dipping into North Carolina, right? That's the first hurdle. The next step was getting over that team that was a thorn in their side. They'll be 10-1, 9-2 or whatever when they got to that game and couldn't get over the hump and beat these people to go to the ACC championship game. But they did. So you took care of home first. Local recruiting, local play, right? The next hump was being able to, you beat everyone else in the Atlantic, but you couldn't beat this one team. You get over that hump. So now, of course, winning the championship, things of that nature. But what was that other hurdle they had to get to? Elite recruiting. Okay. They had to this mindset at Clemson of development. That was their thing. We don't want the big 4 or 5-star guys. We want people who really want to be here, who believe in what we're going to do, who's a Clemson guy, and we will coach you up to the absolute best. But they had to handle stuff in their local area. They had to take care of the one team they couldn't get over. And then the next thing they had to do was match their great development, match their winning locally, match their winning conference-wise with elite recruiting, win a national championship when they put it all together. Tie it to Miami. What's the first hurdle? Beating those punks in Tallahassee. We've done it for 4 years. That was our hurdle, winning locally. Florida, they're in a different conference. They're going to get young men who are going to go there because their shirt says SEC. We play each other once every 5, 6, 10 years, whatever. I'm tired of dealing with them. They're no longer in our conversation. All right, that's something we got to get over as Canes fans. They don't want to deal with us, kick rocks. We'll deal with it, all right? We've got over that first hurdle. That next hurdle is being able to win your conference. Beat those teams that you can't get over. Beat the Georgia Techs, who were 2-0 against us, and some of their worst teams. Okay? Beat the North Carolinas, who, if we don't get our stuff together with this new player likeness thing, Atlanta's a great hub, and North Carolina Tar Heel Blue always looks amazing. Those two places will be destinations to be if Miami does not get their crap in order. And even if they do, they'll still get a nice crop of the country to go to those two places, right? So that's our second hurdle. We've handled the people at the bottom. Locally, Miami is one of the best in the state. They're either number 1 or number 2, according to high school coaches in the state. That doesn't mean that you just give up on Tallahassee and not prepare for them as hard as humanly possible. But we've kind of gotten over that. Let's go to the next step. Let's win this Coastal consistently. Okay, what I mean by that is being 2-0 over the next 2 years, 2021 and 2022. If you can tell the next recruiting class of 2023 that the young men in this locker room have not lost a Coastal game. Now, recruiting nationally and bringing in a number 1 overall recruit, winning the ACC, that's a step higher than where we are right now. Understand where we are. Understand the importance of this level that we're in. We need to be able to handle the Coastal on a consistent basis. And it's mainly because we're going up against young men who maybe aren't as talented. North Carolina, yes, they're just as talented as us. But they're doing things at such a high level. They got such great development. They're older players. We have to add that with the talent that we have and win consistently. Install the fear of the Miami Hurricanes back into the ACC Coastal because they don't fear us. Duke understands that they may or may not lose, but they're not scared of us. North Carolina could give a crap less about Miami. Georgia Tech, on their worst seasons, have beaten Miami. They don't care about us. We got to get that on the other side of things, okay? You just like we did with Tallahassee. They went 7 straight. That's almost 2 whole recruiting cycles, Parker. And we needed a miracle to break the streak, but we did. Now we got to go on our own run. So I think we're at that second pillar. We need to be able to dominate that pillar over the next couple of years. Then I can see 2024, you start taking that next step of let's win the ACC. Let's win a huge recruiting battle versus Alabama for the number 1 offensive tackle in the country. Let's win for the best 6'5" defensive tackle in the country versus Georgia. Those are a little years away from where we are right now as a program.
I love what you did there for a number of reasons because you made the analogy and you took one of the gold standards currently, Clemson, and you stacked it right up against what Miami could next do that would be in line with what Clemson did. You didn't go to Alabama. You didn't go to Ohio State because we'd have to go back decades to figure out, okay, because it's been going on forever, or it's tied to a Nick Saban who's won national championships, and Dabo Swinney was a nobody. So that's how they did it. And yeah, to see that transition from what you were talking about with Florida State being that last hurdle in the ACC, and for 3 to 4 years there, that was the game in the ACC. That was the one that was like, okay, it doesn't matter who wins the Coastal. It matters who wins the Florida State Clemson game. And everybody was watching October 20th or whatever the date was. Boom, circle it, whoever wins it. And Clemson kept running into Florida State, couldn't push through them. And then you saw that transition. And 2015 was the year, obviously. Clemson got it done, went on to the national championship game. But Florida State was still right there. So those 2015 and 16 games were just epic.
Amazing to watch.
Because that's when the transition was happening.
Yep.
And then they broke through. And even in 2017, for as bad as you would say Tallahassee was, Florida State, they still gave Clemson a really good game because they still had that kind of talent to hang.
But think about this, Mark. What does it do for the psyche of a young man to when they see that logo, they see that team on the other side of the field, there is no fear. That we had that problem with Tallahassee too. We had the miracle in 17. When they came down, they were up 27-7 before you could blink. Because guess what? Psychologically, they're like, yeah, well, eventually y'all had to get one, and it took a Hail Mary throw up to a 6'5" dude. All right, y'all got one. Cool. Let me show y'all what it's really like. And then you saw the tide change in that game. We're like, no, we're going to keep fighting you. This is different now. Okay, cool. They ended up falling back. We had a crazy comeback, down by 20, come back and win by 4. Okay, boom. So that's 2. Then you go to 2019. They are atrocious. We're average looking, average to below average type of team at the time. What happens? Miami wins 31-17 in a game that looked, the score said one thing, but the game was different. I mean, Greg Rousseau took it over and embarrassed them for the most part, but it wasn't a blowout. Why? Because there were still young men on that team who knew what it was like to beat down on Miami as their senior year, but they lost it in. Now, this year came, and not a single player on that team beat Miami. So it was different. That psyche was different. The way that they had to talk it up is different. They got to call players from the league to try to come tell them what it's like to beat Miami. Not the seniors get up and talk in front of the team about what it's like to beat Miami. And then we stomp them in the ground. So what's going to happen next year? They're going to have a full team, full staff that does not know what it's like, what it takes, what it looks like to beat the University of Miami in a football game. So psychologically, they're going to be, a dog in the corner. They're going to come out swinging, maybe even doing personal fouls, whatever, because they know for a fact, dog, I don't know what I got. I don't know what I should do. I give them my best shot to keep getting up. And for us, the flip side of that, you have to battle being complacent, being comfortable, because you've never lost to them. You got to remember how the importance of that game goes. So that's how rivalry football goes, man. It's a huge psychological battle before you even touch the football field and the preparation for when you're dealing with young men from the ages of 18 to 22.
And I won't get into it too deep, but psychology, as soon as you said psychology in rivalry games, I thought of Ohio State, Michigan. And it's one of the reasons that even though Ohio State doesn't beat other teams that aren't even close to Michigan as badly as they beat Michigan, they've had such an edge on Michigan. They've just trampled them recently.
Those are one of the games that, as someone who was raised in the most southern you can be in the country, in Miami next to the Keys, it was sad, man. It's sad to be able, Denard Robinson was one of my favorite players because he's from South Florida, kind of like Central Florida area, and nobody in the Big Three wanted to give him a chance. We all wanted him as a running back, wide receiver type, which is what he turned out to be in the National Football League. So obviously we saw something that other teams didn't want to see. But, Rich Rod had that type of offense where he could thrive. He goes to Michigan, He's the last QB to beat the Ohio State, and even that game was kind of like, like it was kind of close. It was a historically really good game. That year, he beat Notre Dame in a great classic night game. Was the first 8 p.m. ABC kickoff in the big house in school history. And that, I remember sitting down and watching that as a freshman in high school, like, this is history, and they both wore these throwback unis, no last names on the back, and Notre Dame came out in white, green, and gold. Even the referees wore fedoras, like old school referee type. So it was kind of funny to watch that. Wow, my memory is just crazy like that. But
it is crazy like that, because I watched every play of that game too, but I wouldn't have come up with the referees wearing the fedoras. But as soon as you said that, I thought, yeah, that's right, that happened.
Yep. So I say that to say, but think about the completely different mindset of both those teams. It's been, after they beat them this year, which they will, it'll be 10 years. 2011 was the last time. So 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 10 years. Mark, listen, I would have to give up if those punks beat us 10 years straight. They were close. 7 is real close to 10. But woo.
They beat them 6 straight before that game. So they've won 16 out of 17.
How is that a rivalry?
And this is not an excuse for the one loss, but I think it should be noted that was the interim head coach year, Luke Fickell, between Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer. So that was
the year he lost to Miami.
Yeah. They lost 7 games that year. That was a really down season. That's when they lost Terrell Pryor and they lost 5 offensive starters for
Braxton Miller was a true freshman. I was at that game too. So I remember hearing about this number 5 dude who wears gloves. And it's like, if you see him in the game, get scared. And whenever he did get in the game, he kept giving you guys a chance, but then they kept trying to push that super senior dude. And I mean, even how when you watch certain teams, you expect them when they come out on warm-ups.
You're talking about Braxton Miller. Yeah,
Braxton Miller.
Yeah.
Even the Ohio State O-line didn't look like the Ohio State. You could tell that was a rebuilding year. They had a couple. Shazier was a freshman on that team, and he's from Miami. He played at Miami Pace, so a couple of us knew him or knew of him. So he was somebody to watch. He was a standout in that game. And of course, Braxton Miller was a huge standout in that game. Like I said, we could go down memory lane all day. I got free reign. I could be here for an hour plus. I don't care. I'm just talking today.